CEO of Toyota announces that moving to electric will destroy the business model of Toyota and many other companies. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. So we want to first thank our Patreon supporters. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you want good information every day of the week prior to market open to better invest and trade your shares, we're happy to provide that if you're a member of our Patreon. We also want to note that we want to encourage you to like and subscribe if you enjoy our show. That engagement significantly impacts how well the show does and how we get information out to individuals that want to know more for all the reasons of investing and better understanding of Tesla and how the EV market is moving. So today, we actually did a show a few weeks ago where the CEO of Toyota actually came out and said that Elon Musk is not a chef. And in the case of Toyota, not only do we have chefs, but we also have the cooks in the kitchen, and we're a full service entity, unlike how Tesla services its customers. So that was kind of the first of many across the bow shots from Toyota. As you know, Toyota was an early investor in Tesla. Toyota actually provided work. There's a number of RAV4s out there that are based on Tesla batteries. And so the relationship with Toyota also rotates back to the fact that the Fremont factory was basically sold for a song by Toyota to Tesla to help them get going. So without further ado, we kind of dive into today's show and amazing implications. So I'm a bit surprised, shocked right now, because there's a process by which, you know, we initially had the iPods, and then we had the iPhone and iPads, and all that collection of products eventually became a monster for Apple over time. And there's a lot of feel to it that's very similar. So when the iPod came out, there are a lot of competing entities that were on notice that sort of the Apple ecosystem and how everything was working is notable. And I think that Sony and a number of other manufacturers were slow to respond to the potential that Apple had at that point while they controlled most of the market. And then we ended up in a situation where by the time they did decide to respond, the consumers had so dramatically shifted their behavior that there's almost nothing anybody could do to stop the Apple onslaught. And then new products came out, the iPad, you know, subsequently, you know, an upgrade to the life of the basic laptops with the relationship with customers who are focused on creative pursuits, sort of driving a wedge in where Apple gained a lot of share. And there are ways in which Tesla is starting to follow down the same path right now, which brings us to Toyota. As you know, Toyota is the second largest market cap company in the world behind Tesla. They had been number one for a long time, and it looked like, you know, their dominance would not be relinquished. Now we're in an interesting zone, because what was supposed to happen is that Toyota and the other major global manufacturers were supposed to quickly respond to the electric threat of Tesla. And then we ended up with Tesla getting wiped out because the large players took it seriously, and then they came in and kind of leveraged their resources of every type to sort of wipe out Tesla. Now, this is an interesting circumstance because Toyota's response to Tesla sort of has been, and the reason why they didn't enter earlier is they've really been working on hydrogen vehicles. And the hydrogen vehicle thing is actually, it's a good product. It's a clean product, but because the final production is water, they have both semis as well as regular vehicles. But as one of our viewers pointed out, the cost for a refill of a friend of his, Mariah, in California, was like $90 versus the refill cost of his Model 3 was $30. So the price of the vehicles is actually comparable, but the fuel costs over time pretty much tells consumers that hydrogen is not a great way for them to go. So this brings us to our conversation about what's happening with the CEO of Toyota. What he indicated was that, well, wait a second, you know, initially he was talking about the fact that Tesla is just a disorganized company based on the fact there's no chef there. Now we have a new attack by the head of Toyota that I think stretches to a number of other firms. And what he pointed out was, well, the Japanese government decided that by 2035, they would no longer allow combustion engines to operate in Japan. And so that long time frame should theoretically give all the manufacturers an opportunity to develop their electric capabilities and to deliver that to the marketplace, with Tesla's success being the model that they should be considering using. So what's ended up happening here, though, instead, is that the head of Toyota has announced that, well, we actually don't like the decision of the Japanese government, number one. And number two, it's our belief, or his belief, that this will destroy the business model that's been developed over the last 100 years for all of those automakers in Japan. And so I was kind of shocked to see this for a bunch of reasons. The first is there are certain companies that might be short on cash, for example, Chrysler, that have difficulty sort of building a solution that would allow them to compete with Tesla. And Toyota is not low on resources. The second thing that I heard there, in my mind, is desperation. It's very clear to Toyota and others that Tesla does have a head start. They have a good, getting better relationship with their current customer base. And there's still room for a lot of entities to deliver solutions and have success. The problem right now, though, is, as you can see, I actually went to Detroit and had a chance to sort of really look at GM and what they're up to. And I was kind of shocked because GM, Daimler, a bunch of other folks are having a lot of challenges when it comes to a Tesla response. Obviously, the number one challenge is both a battery solution that gets long enough range that customers are happy with it. And then once you have that solution, what kind of scale can they deliver, given that there's a shortage of battery supply globally? And beyond the battery supply is raw materials. And if you're not large enough, you're not able to get a stable price point for supply. So your end vehicles could be priced competitively. So this problem exists for all the major OEMs. And again, I just thought Toyota would be one of the entities that would look at this challenge as a no-brainer. One, because they got the money. Two, because they have a working product. It's a hybrid product that they developed, and it's halfway there to battery. So I thought the step to full battery for them would be painless. And obviously it's proving not to be the case. I'm also surprised by Toyota because, as you all know, Toyota's relationship with Panasonic goes back probably 100 years. And so the Japanese companies very much work together hand in hand to ensure that they do business with each other and support the long-term success of each other's companies. So I'm further surprised by the CEO of Toyota's response because they actually are in a partnership with Toyota, and according to documents that came out, or notes that came out a year and a half ago, they're scheduled to start delivering fully electric vehicles in 2021, latest 2022, from that Panasonic partnership. And based on that, it was in my mind that of all the OEMs that would have the best response to Tesla, because of they're having Panasonic behind them, and Panasonic's also producing most of the cells for Tesla, this was going to be a no-brainer for them to deliver some great products and then become a robust competitor for Tesla. And as we've come to see, this has not occurred. And I'm very, very surprised by this. I believe that they have, if they were serious about it, they could pull it off. I really think that they may be having the same problem that some of the other folks like GM are having, which is that when you, in huge disruptive circumstances where people working on projects know that the project they're working on could potentially wipe out jobs for large numbers of people at their companies, you have this problem of, should we give it our full effort, or should we try to sort of delay the transition or do something else to preserve those jobs attached as long as possible? So the solution that Silicon Valley came up with is basically, as we've discussed previously, the folks at Cisco in particular do an excellent job of eating their young, where they actually will identify promising new technology, help a sort of a small group of executives to spin off and have everything, including customer contact, with which to develop those products. Once those products and services have sufficiently been developed, you now repurchase the company in and then distribute those products across the entire enterprise of the company to all its customers possible. So this business model has worked out really well, because when you're interfacing directly with your corporate parent, not only could you have issues, I mean, they're corporate politics, and so there could be issues anywhere. It could be the finance department not willing to support, or it could be sales not willing to support. Or, for example, we're recently learned that the ID, there's a study or survey that was done by Secret Shoppers where they went to all 50 locations where VW's new IDE are being sold. And what they found was most of the customers actually are not being told about the vehicle, or not being encouraged to purchase it. And so it could even be at the sales back end. So at any point along, if you will, the customer supply chain for a vehicle, you potentially have roadblocks, and those roadblocks can result in little or no progress over time. And so that's why spin-offs tend to be the way to handle something like, how do we respond to Tesla's assault? So I have to say that if Toyota is nervous, I really think this is a sign that a number of the big OEMs that are out there that are successful now are kind of screwed. I actually had a friend of mine who worked for Hyundai for a bit, and he pointed out that it's a very low margin business and a tough one to be in the auto business. And so I was kind of surprised, because you see all those large numbers moving around when in the price of a car. But between competition and other issues, you do have that problem. So what I was kind of fascinated by here is just the fact that there's a problem happening, which is there's dual innovation and the cost of it that's going on, where the big OEMs that are primarily selling electric or internal combustion engines are now in a position where they have to do R&D, supply chain development, all these other elements on the electric side, but they're also at the same time having to keep innovating on ICE vehicles in order to maintain their market position. So I just think that this is a very, very tough zone that we're seeing right now for the OEMs. I'm a bit surprised, because there are a lot of jobs tied to these firms succeeding globally. and the volume of progress they've enjoyed has been fairly low and extremely shocking. But there are a lot of sort of small and large things that influence whether or not this works. So my assessment is, based on what the head of Toyota is suggesting, right now, all the big OEMs are in trouble, and they face their business models being destroyed, and they don't have an adequate response in a timely fashion to address the Tesla onslaught. And so therefore, unfortunately, I think that this is a sign of potential cars rolling the same direction as the phones have gone when it comes to Apple entering the business and then doing as well as they are now, and then Google doing the same and wiping out people like Nokia. So I hope that this is not the case, because I like to see people employed and working. But if Toyota is fearful in the manner that they're describing, I think it's quite clear that we're sort of headed down the same path where Tesla ends up with a huge amount of sales, and you have a large number of OEMs start going out of business in the process because they were really built on old models and are having difficulty porting to the new circumstance. Whenever we mention GM or Toyota or any of these companies, their PR departments have to watch what we say. And I really think that right now, one of the problems that's lurking out there is that until the numbers come really big for Tesla, it's going to be easy for them to be dismissed. And by the time they should be responding, they're in bad shape. The last thought I wanted to share was, it was shared by Bob Lutz that they actually did not make a Cadillac with a lot of nice features for their initial electric vehicles, because they thought that the only people that would be able to afford, or most of the people that were thinking EVs, were fruits and nuts and really didn't have the money to buy an electric vehicle. And I thought it was interesting because instead of delivering a high performance vehicle that took advantage of what electric could do, they actually decided to go ahead and produce the Chevy Bolt and the Volt. And those are capable vehicles, but chasing performance and some of the other reasons why people love cars, I think, was a big mistake. And I have to say again that I'm still looking forward to GM dropping the entire Chevy Bolt drivetrain in a nice Cadillac body, allowing consumers to have a chance to drive it around without the looks limitations and sort of creature comfort limitations that go with the Chevy product line. So we'll see what happens, but I just think that this is another sign that there's deep trouble for those big manufacturers. The final part of our show, as usual, is our health tips, and I just pulled out my leg weights here. So as we've discussed, these are 5-pound leg weights. I'm going to attach them to my ankle and do 25 leg lifts on each leg. This was a health tip recommendation by a doctor, MD PhD, whose name is Dinesh at the University of Michigan. He was saying that you really want to consider doing the 25 leg lifts because it strengthens your quad muscles, lowering, it kind of supports the knees, lowering the chance of having operations there. The next health tip for today is, prior to lovemaking, don't forget small salad or very small meal, because blood flow to your stomach helps to digest that food. And if all that blood flow is going there, it's not available for other portions of the body, particularly when it comes to the lovemaking activity. The third thing I wanted to mention for our health tip for today is, don't forget, don't go to bed within 4 hours of eating is preferable because the food is digested. Minimum 2 hours is what was recommended to us by a upper respiratory cancer doc at University of Louisville. What he pointed out to us was that there's this problem where a lot of people are getting very busy at work, and so they're eating and quickly jumping in bed. And as a result of that, you now have the stomach bile that digests the food rolling up into the upper respiratory area and causing cancer. So you're welcome to do this. He also followed on to point out that a lot of people think antacids or other short-term remedies are a good idea. And he said, while they feel great and you feel good afterwards, the damage is actually already done. And so therefore, you may want to consider that one as well. We also want to encourage the 30 SPF for better, which lowers chance of skin cancer. And then finally, no more than, our kidney doc recommended that you eat no more than once a week fried foods. What he highlighted to us was that what happens is that your body will actually store the fried foods near your organs because it doesn't know what to do with them. He kind of explained that there's a lot of newfangled things that have been developed over the last 100 years food-wise, but your body is actually sort of a 2,000-year-old entity and prefers stuff that's introduced, that it was dealing with over that longer period than over the shorter period. So it might be another item to consider sort of in the health run, and that was our kidney doc recommendation. At any rate, I want to thank you for taking time out to join us today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Litrohot, Hebrew, Chota, Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, Ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Hey do, Swedish, Mahalo, Hawaiian, Namaste, Hindi, Ohio gozaimasu, Japanese, and Assalamu alaikum, Muslim, and Dobijania, Polish. And in Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Bye for now. And we look forward to your comments. Please take time to like and subscribe.